Did you know that the original Santa Claus came from the greater Western New York region? Yes, it's true. And we'll learn all about him and the wonderful school that he started to teach other people how to be department store Santa Clauses. We'll listen to that in a moment on this week's version of the State of Greater Western New York report, and it's brought to you by.
Each week, our community makes history. Each week, you make history. And each week, there's only one source to turn to for the first take on history. You know what that is? Subscribe to the Sentinel right now to discover the history being made in your own backyard. The Men in Honeylake Falls Lima Sentinel. More than just your news, it's your history. Welcome, everyone, to this edition of the State of Greater Western New York report. Join us each episode as we discuss fantastic topics ranging from history to science to the strange and the wonderful, as well as the treasured spirit with which our region has infused America. We challenge you to consider all things Greater Western New York, from our region's very beginnings to how it inspires, how it empowers, and why it is so admired. Here's the host of the State of Greater Western New York report, Chris Carosa.
There we go. We got it working. And thanks for everyone for joining in this week's version of the State of Greater Western New York report. Today we're going to talk about something that's very seasonal. Santa Claus. Santa Claus was born in Western New York. I think so. I think he was born here. With us is a very familiar guest, Catherine Cooper, the Orleans County historian. Catherine, Charles Howard. Who is he? Where's he from? And then we'll start talking about more why he's so famous. So tell us a little bit about Charles Howard.
Good afternoon, Chris, and thank you for this invitation to speak about Charles Howard, one of Orleans County's treasures. Charles Howard was born just outside Albion in an old farmhouse on the corner of Phipps Road and Route 31 on June 15th, 1896. And he grew up normal, or everyday boy, went to school in Albion. However, when he was in fourth grade, he did portray Santa Claus. That was a seminal moment in his life. He graduated at the age of 16 and worked on his family farm. But he always had a great interest in Santa Claus. Now, Charles Howard had a unique gift. He had a great visual he had an eye for visual drama. And before ever he got involved with Santa Claus, he was involved with the Orleans County Fair, and he set up 3 amazing displays at the Orleans County Fair. One of them was in 1928, a miniature Niagara Falls using 10,000 gallons of cider, and this was to promote the apple cider industry. And then in 1929, he was instrumental in the baking of the largest apple pie, which used 100 bushels of apples. And then in 1931, the world's largest cake, 3.5 tons, 8 feet at the base, 14 feet high. It needed a special building. They sold it for 10 cents a slice, and everybody said it was good. But in the back, he always had this interest in Santa Claus. And early on in his career, he was a toy maker. And he tried that in Medina, didn't work. And then he was employed by J.B. Murrell's in Albion. It was a furniture company. And they employed him around Christmas time to make toys. And he was set up in the window, and everybody would come along and watch him making toys. And that was great, but they didn't go in the store. So that didn't work out so well for J.B. Merrill's. So he continued on his quest to pursue Santa Claus, and he went to Rochester, to McCurdy's. And he was very nervous when he interviewed for his position, but they hired him because he was enthusiastic, and that was the beginning of his long association with Santa Claus. He continued farming at the time, and he would get up in the morning and do his chores, and then get on the trolley and go to Rochester and work all day as a Santa Claus and come home and do his chores again. He was young at the time and he was able to do that, but it was very trying and difficult. So then he moved from McCurdy's to AM&A's in Buffalo. That will be a name that is very familiar to everybody. Adams, Meldrum, and Anderson, which sadly is now defunct. And he was Santa Claus there for a while. And it was during these early years that he built his philosophy of Santa Claus. He saw other Santa Clauses, and he was dismayed by the lack of professionalism of some of the Santa Clauses. He saw once a Santa Claus who was ill-dressed and went on his break and had a cigarette, and then, of course, came back smelling of cigarette. And he thought that this was horrendous for any child to have to experience. He always thought of the children. He thought that this should be a magical and real experience for the children. What was this he said? Never lie to a child. The love of children for Santa Claus, he said, stood for everything that was good and fine in the world. And because that was his belief, he felt that Santa Claus should also be good and fine. And so that was how he came up with the idea of the Santa Claus School.
Well, before we get into that, let's go back to the stores. So he's in McCurdy's, he's in AM&A's. He's the same kind of Santa Claus that we've always imagined in the stores. So that's what brought people in the stores, as opposed to just being the window dressing and the toy maker, like he was earlier. So
right.
How, before we get to the school, we have to explain how he was discovered. So how was he discovered by Macy's? I mean, that's really when the break occurred.
In 1948, 49.
Yeah, tell us that story.
He had worked at McCurdy's, as I said, and Adam Meldrum's and Anderson, and he had started his store. And through some contacts was how he got involved with Macy's. And then the Macy's parade had been going since 1924. It was first broadcast on the radio in 1932, and then in 1946 it was televised. And in 1947 it was televised nationally on NBC. So when he got to it in 1948, it was already being televised.
Now, was he the first Santa Claus for the parade?
No, he was not. But he was the longest running Santa Claus. He served from 1948 until the early 60s.
Did he also appear in the store, or was he just in the parade?
He was just in the parade.
So how did he become famous enough to open up the school that we're going to talk about in a moment?
Well, he actually started the school in the 30s.
Ah, okay. Before he was the Macy's Santa Claus.
Before he was the Macy's parade, yes.
All right.
Yes, he had started the school because he felt that Santa Clauses should be professional and they should learn some basics of how to be a Santa Claus. And his first year, he had 3 students, and he charged $15, and only one of them paid. And the next year, he charged $25. And he said that when he had mentioned to one of the storekeepers that he was only charging $15, the comment was, well, if it's only worth $15, it mustn't be very much good. Why would people go to it? So that was when he charged more. And then by the 3rd year, he was charging, I think, $50, and he had 40 students. So it grew slowly by word of mouth. He felt that the greatest asset to a store or community was a good Santa Claus. And he would convince the store owners that if they had a good Santa Claus, Not only was it good for the Santa business, but it was good for everything, because a good Santa Claus with his Santa in his heart would imbue everybody in the store with the spirit of Christmas. And that was good for sales, apparently. So here we have some of the brochures. The Christmas Park home of the world famous Santa School. Students would stay at the Maple Manor, and the classes were held in his home, and his wife would provide a noonday meal for all the students, at which they would sit around the table and talk and network, as I would imagine we would say today, and get together and share stories. And that was very good for the promotion of Santa Claus. The school had a curriculum, and it specialized in certain topics, among them the history and evolution of Santa Claus. Because when Charles Howard first started out as Santa Claus, he realized that he really didn't know very much about the story of Santa Claus and how it evolved and what the traditions were and what the folklore around the world was. So he studied that, and he thought that that was important for the Santa Clauses to have as a background for what they were doing. And he also had them study child psychology so that they would be able to deal with the children that they were encountering and all their various personalities and the different stages and ages of development and how that impacted on their experience of Santa Claus. And he also taught Santa Claus mechanics. So here we have some photographs of Santa Claus and his reindeer. He had two reindeer at his park, Dancer and Dasher. But to get back to the school, students would come and spend about a week there, and they would get a certificate. They could, over time, earn a BSc, the Bachelor's of Santa Clausing. But they would have to study for that over years. They would have to read, and they would have to write what we would call reports. I guess they would have to write on different topics to show that they had scholarship in the area of Santa Clausing. And of course, another item of great importance, and this would be included in the Santa Claus mechanics probably, would be the outfit. And he also taught them how to smile and how to laugh so that their eyes crinkled, and how to deal with the beard, and the art of makeup. Again, some of those great photographs at the back there of the school. Gentlemen being taught the rudiments of being a good Santa Claus. As you can see there are two ladies on the side. It did introduce and popularize the idea of Mrs. Claus. He thought that that was something that was important at the time, to round up the vision of Santa Claus. And he believed that children naturally believed that there was a Mrs. Claus. Of course there would be. If there was a Mr. Claus, why wouldn't there be a Mrs. Claus? And the Mrs. Clauses, of course, his wife was the main Mrs. Claus, but the courses for the Mrs. Clauses at his school were focused on Mrs. Claus as a helpmeet for Santa Claus, helping him with his uniform and his outfit and children and helping in those ways.
Well, we'll be talking more about the Santa Claus School, as well as maybe a little bit about what happened to it and what's going on now. Perhaps this revitalization, this renewed interest in Charles Howard. Perhaps Catherine can tell us a little bit more about why that's occurring right now. We'll be back right after this break on the State of Greater Western New York Report.
Through the mists of time, nature and man have both created and buried treasures beyond the imagination. With the ages, these riches slowly dissolve into mere myths until they are forever forgotten. But there are those brave souls who tirelessly cling to the truth, ever seeking to discover the undiscovered, to reveal what has always been there, to uncover the hidden gems of a land thought forsaken but loved by millions. 50 Hidden Gems of Greater Western New York. Discover the secrets in your own backyard. Buy your copy now at 50hiddengems.com.
Welcome back to the State of Greater Western New York Report. I'm Chris Carosa, and our guest today is Catherine Cooper, Orleans County historian. She's telling us all about Charles Howard and his amazing Santa Claus School. Catherine, we had an audience question, and that was, how did he attract people to the school? As you said, he started it in the 30s. It was probably not a great time in America. Also, he wasn't really nationally known until a decade later when he was the Santa Claus Parade, Santa Claus at the Macy's Day Parade. So how did he attract people to the school in Albion during the 30s when he started it?
He would contact department stores and indicate to them the importance of having a good Santa in the store. I would imagine that the word spread also through the network of the people who came to his Santa Claus School. And I should mention the outfit. That was a huge part of the vision of Santa Claus. He felt that Santa had to look well at all times, and his outfit had to be authentic. So it was made of good red wool, fur from rabbit pelts, and the beard and the hair were from yak hair, the long hair from the yak. The suits were not inexpensive. They were about $260, and it was an investment, but a very worthwhile one. And then through the years, Christmas time was all year long. It wasn't just at Christmas, because suits would have to be repaired and cleaned, and so they would be sent to Albion for maintenance. And that was carried on. And sometimes I'm sure they had to be adjusted as people grew. That might be part of it too. He was a very sincere man, but he was well able to understand children, and he understood that some of them were a little impish. Some of them would be afraid, some of them would be crying, and he had techniques on dealing with all of those situations. But one was a technique for dealing with the beard yanker. He said you could always spot a beard yanker. They'd have a gleam in their eye, and you just had to be aware of it and grab hold of your beard before they yanked it, and then when they yanked it, yell "ouch" in a very loud voice.
We had
And
a we had another question just came in about the cost. I don't know if you know the answer to this one, but do you know if the department stores paid for this, or did
Yes,
the? Oh,
yes,
they
the
did. Oh, you
department
did know
stores.
the
Yes,
answer.
the
Okay.
department stores paid for it. Yes,
Well,
they
that
did.
made it a whole lot easier to
Because it
attract
was
people.
an investment, and like I said, they realized that the spirit that these people, that the Santa Claus students went back with, was so infectious that it infected the staff and therefore their um, interactions with the customers.
Now, how did
And
Charles learn all this psychology thing? What about his background really informed him on
probably
this?
from experience. I'm sure in the first couple of years, just dealing with hundreds of children, he learned a lot about child psychology and parental psychology. Um, Also, there's one very charming story that he had in one of the accounts. He had this child on his lap, and the child was asking for, a list of 5 or 6 presents, and the mother was in the background, and so obviously she could not afford all of those presents. So Santa said to the child, "Now look, if I give you all of those things, I'm not going to have enough for every child to go around. So you're probably just going to get one." And things like that. Oh, he also said, never lie to a child and don't make any promises.
Hmm.
And those are two very profound
Did he
things when,
did
when
he
you think
use a
about it.
textbook or anything that
I
may
don't
have been
think so.
preserved?
I don't believe so. I think it was all from
Just
him.
from
And
him,
he
yeah.
would also have specialists come in to talk about different topics. There was a gentleman in Medina at the time, Charles Newton Hood, who was a great showman, and so he would come in and deal with dramatics and presentation and things like that. And he would have different people come in to. Um, there was one thing I was going to look for here. Yes, he thought that Santa Claus was love. Santa
Hmm.
Claus was the spirit of giving, because he was based on the legend of Saint Nicholas from the 4th century, who emphasized giving, and that was his unfailing, unflappable belief, and that was what inspired him.
Right. Well, why don't I have you finish the story of the school? Tell us what happened as Charles progressed. Maybe stopped being the Santa Claus at the Macy's Day Parade, allowed him to focus more on the school. Tell us the rest of the story with regard to the school.
The school continued over the years, but he also started a Christmas park in Medina, or in Albion, sorry. He had had an accident, and his doctor told him that he couldn't farm anymore. So he decided to turn his farm over to a themed Christmas park. And he did this, and it was very successful. It was it was just like Disney, I guess. Everything was Christmas. He he in his vision he sorry, I'm just looking for one of my notes here. Here, he felt that everything in the Santa Claus should be Santa themed, or nativity themed, or North Pole themed, so that at any time of the year when you went to it, it would inspire you to feel like Christmas. And it was for children. And there was a Toyland, there was a Santa train, there were Santa North Pole kind of animals. There was a wishing well, and you would get to meet Santa. And people still remember going there and particularly the wishing well and interacting with Santa Claus.
How long did the park last for, and the school for that matter?
The park lasted until about the 60s, and he probably wasn't the best businessman. He had some financial difficulties, but again, that wasn't his focus. His focus was the spirit. And sometimes spiritual things and financial things don't always jive. The school actually still continues. A former student continued it in Michigan, and it is still continuing to this day in Midland, Michigan. And I actually saw that they have a school in 2022 from September 19th to October 1st. The couple who are running it are Tom and Holly Valenti, and they have about 300 joyful and jolly new and returning students each year. So the CWH school, Santa School, is still continuing.
Now, do they give any tribute to Charles Howard in the school?
Yes, because it's included in their name, this Charles W.
Yes.
Howard.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we just have a few more minutes left. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on now to maybe celebrate Charles Howard or just celebrate Christmas in and around Orleans County, Albion, wherever you're doing things?
There has been a resurgence of interest in Charles Howard of late, and I think it's just a new generation who is just rediscovering this story and this spirit. There's a glorious mural in downtown Medina. It was done by Stacy Kirby a couple of years ago, and it shows there it is. It's Santa soaring over Albion, and it is such a tribute to the spirit of Santa Claus. And the intriguing thing about it is that is Albion in the background. There's the spire of the Presbyterian Church, so everybody who looks at it can see that and use it as a landmark to figure out where they are from or what landmarks they know. And there's the courthouse, and it embodies the spirit of Charles Howard and the magic of Santa over reality. There are also plans afoot to erect a bronze statue. So that is being pursued at the moment, the funding for that. And every year now, around Christmas time, there are inquiries from radio stations and television stations for information on Charles Howard.
Now, if someone wanted to go to maybe Albion and learn more, is it possible to do that? Is there an exhibit anywhere? A permanent exhibit?
There is not an exhibit at the moment. There may be in the future. The house still stands at the corner of Phipps Road and 31, and it has a historical marker in front. The mural is downtown, and that can be seen. And also Route 31, a section of that was dedicated to Charles W. Howard last year.
I see. Well, Catherine, thank you very much for being on today's show. You've been a font of information. Very, very interesting stuff that people, no doubt, a lot maybe didn't know about. But it's cool to know that the spirit of Santa Claus, the spirit of Christmas, as embodied by especially the department store, the classic department store Santa, really has its roots in the heart of the greater Western New York region. I wanted just to thank everybody for listening today and remind them that if you want to be a member of the audience to ask questions during the live portion of the show, just go to stateof.greaterwestnewyork.com and you can sign up, and it's free, and you'll get an email every morning, Thursday morning, telling you who the guest is and a link to the show so that you can see it. Remember, it's by private invitation only. It's free, and this is how you can get it. If you can't attend the show live, you can always see it in the archive version on our website, or you can watch the rebroadcast on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel. So that's it for today. Thank you all for being a part of today's great show, and we'll see you all next week.